I love to read about politics. I know it's a parlor game. I know it's a long way to November of 2024, and a lot of things can happen. But this caught my eye. How Mr. Nice Guy, Tim Scott, could slay Trump and win the nomination. I'm not buying it. Reading from Keith Naughton's piece, which I saw at thehill.com. In politics, nice guys may not finish last, but they rarely win, especially for president. Tim Scott is giving it a try.
This is the greatest nation on God's green earth. Today I'm thinking back to my grandfather, born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina, in the Deep South. By the time he was in the third grade, he was forced out of school. His education was over, and he was forced to start picking cotton. But my grandfather lived long enough to watch his grandson pick out a seat in Congress.
Very aspirational guy, very positive guy, glasses half full sort of guy. There's more that unites us than divides us sort of guy. He's playing a complex game. And as Keith writes, he's ready to drop the nice guy routine when conditions are absolutely right. And that's what his strategy looks like. Keith Naughton, opinion contributor for thehill.com, longtime political consultant out of Pennsylvania. He's in Delaware this afternoon in the belly of the beast. Well, if that is his strategy, how is it going to get done?
I think he is trying to sort of fly under the radar and build up his positives and just sort of wait for maybe some type of Trump collapse. You know, the indictments keep coming for Trump. By January, he's probably going to be facing at least 100 charges. That's a lot to weigh on somebody. And if you're Tim Scott and he's got the lowest unfavorable ratings of anyone running on the Republican side, you know, you could present yourself as a pretty reasonable alternative to the other candidates.
Is Scott running for vice presidency, and then if Trump gets the nomination and drops out before the convention, well, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, he might be seeking, you know, this VP slot. I mean, a lot of people say they're running for president over the years, and they're really just sort of angling for the future, especially on the Republican side. It's hard to be a rookie and get the brass ring on the first shot. I think the problem for Scott with that strategy, and I think he does recognize this, is Trump is such a poison chalice, and he's so unpredictable. You'd almost, if you were asked to run, I think it would be a bad idea to get on the ticket with him. You know, if he loses, you know, he's going to be blaming you and everybody but himself. And who knows what he's going to do in the general election if he makes it that far. But
as you kind of touched on, but let's flesh this out. If asked, if my country asked me to serve, how can I turn it down?
Yeah, that's a challenge for him. I mean, I think on balance, he'd be better off staying away because it's too radioactive. And then you've got time to recover from it. But it's definitely damaging and pretty unprecedented to say no to being a vice presidential candidate.
What is Scott's retail political talents? Have you watched him in action? From what I've seen, he seems to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just got a very friendly way about him. I mean, I think people just warm up to him. He's just got that kind of hard to define quality that makes someone attracted to him, that's very friendly, makes you open to him. He's very well spoken. I think he's very measured in what he has to say. He's sort of the exact opposite of a Hillary Clinton, you know, if you can imagine that.
So Tim Scott needs the Trump nod either as VP or as an heir apparent if Jack Smith takes Trump down.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for all of his work and all the positivity around him, he's averaging only 3%. So that puts him behind DeSantis, Pence, and even the new guy, Ramaswamy, the guy from absolutely nowhere. So he's got to find a way to vault over those folks. Usually you do that by going on the attack, but that's a challenge at this point. I think his easiest ticket is if he gets some type of nod from Trump.
Is there anybody else declared or even undeclared that would be in a similar position as Tim Scott? I guess the closest might be Nikki Haley, but the senility test probably did her in, right?
Yeah, and, you know, that was not good on her part. I mean, I think it sounded good at the time, at least if she was angling for help from Trump in the future. And she also served in the administration. So I think Trump views her as a bit of a turncoat. she's a candidate that I don't think she knows what she's doing. I think she thought she might be the alternative. It's not working out. She kind of wants to play nice with Trump, but at the same time, she's trying to push herself forward. She's really in nowhere land right now.
Keith Naughton is here, a longtime political consultant based in Pennsylvania. Whatever happened to Ron DeSantis? Is this just misstep after misstep after misstep? Zero charisma? What's the problem?
I think he shows why, you have a hard time first time running for president, just like you have a hard time starting a rookie at quarterback. You get a lot of fumbles. He's on the big stage. It's been a challenge for him. I think he's trying to do too much. He's done enough as governor. He should be running on that and on some larger themes. And I think he's also trying to run in a national primary. Well, we don't vote as a nation. We vote state by state. And he needs to be more disciplined and more focused. And this curriculum thing is just an inexcusable gaffe on his part,
Yeah, it seems like an unforced error, huh?
Very, very much so. You've got to be on top of those things if you're governor, if you're an executive, and you want to take credit for all the things going on in your state. You're going to have to watch out for the potholes and patch them up as fast as you can.
Keith Naughton is here, opinion contributor to thehill.com. Describe to us what an ungodly mess it would be if Trump departs during the election, the general election campaign, after securing the nomination.
Well, it would be a mess for the Republicans. I think the Democrats would be pretty happy about that. I mean, I could see a situation where Trump just absolutely won't give up and he just keeps hanging on to the end. If he gets a conviction over the summer or early into the fall, he'll be on the ballot. There's a certain point where you can't take your name off the ballot. And then, what do you say? Are you going to vote for this guy and then he's going to quit and have his VP become president? I mean, it's totally uncharted territory. But in the end, it won't matter. It's too confusing. The voters will just take a pass on Trump and whoever is running mate is.
I know you're in Delaware. Let's jump across the aisle to Blueville and talk about what an ungodly mess this Hunter Biden thing has become.
Well, you can't control what your kids do, apparently, because if Biden could, I think Hunter would probably be, climbing Mount Everest right now, taking a long route. What an absolute mess. I mean, this kid is definitely bad news. I think the Biden folks caught a break with that judge not agreeing to the plea bargain, because that plea bargain, giving someone a free pass on tax evasion, is really bad news. And having that kid have to go to trial or take a tougher sentence, that's a huge break for Biden if that ends up what's happening.
I caught Jill Biden's ex-husband from many, many, many years ago. I didn't even know she had an ex-husband. I should have. But he was on, I think, Newsmax last night, I believe. And he said he had 2 felony counts of tax evasion for $8,000. And still they're going to give Hunter Biden a pass on, $1.5 million to $2 million.
Yeah, it's outrageous. The public should be very unhappy with it. And they want to give him a break on any foreign influence charges in the future, some sort of blanket immunity. So it's really something that I think the public will be outraged at. It's not enough really to turn an election, because I still think most of the public is concerned about the economy, employment, inflation, and so forth. But it does stink. And honestly, I think the mainstream media covering for Biden on this, it's a really terrible look for them, and it really hurts their credibility, too.
Talking about the economy, why can't the White House make more of this? Why is the perception that the economy is in still such bad shape?
Well, because prices are still higher, and people's wages haven't necessarily caught up. So it takes a while for public perception to catch up to where the economy is. I mean, if you stretch way, way back in the mists of time to 1992, Clinton versus Bush, the economy is actually growing in 1992. It just hadn't really become apparent. You shift the economic winds by 6 months, and Bush probably beats Clinton. Well, that's the case right now. Things haven't really caught up. Perception has not caught up to reality.
That phrase, I don't like it, but I think in politics it is true. Perception is reality. Whoever gets there first with the story, the most with the story, the best with the story, they generally win.
Absolutely the truth.
Keith Naughton, thanks so much for your time. We'll read more at thehill.com. Hope to have you back in a couple weeks.